This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
With 5 wins in his pocket and only 3 rounds left, Fabian Gerber looks unlikely to release his grip on the championship. On the flip side, in the GTO fight, Rob Olenek is missing out this week, so Nick Mukanos has an open goal in front of him. The real question is, with only 2 third places this season, does Nick have the speed to capitalize and gain maximum points? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 10 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, if our viewers are watching vintage sports car racing, I hope they know about Daytona's road course, but there's always a first time for everyone, so why don't you tell our audience about this classic track?
No problem, Joe. Yes, if you've come to the IESN today looking for some oval racing, feel free to stick around because we're going to give you a taste of that here today. In 1959, Daytona International Speedway opened as a marvel in the engineering and motorsports world for NASCAR, showing off its legendary high banks and high speeds. Just 3 years later, the road course, including parts of the oval and parts of the infield, showcased the first race that would soon come to be known as the 24 Hours of Daytona. From there, Daytona became a staple in both the stock car and sports car racing worlds. Today, you'll see NASCAR-like drafting on the oval with the Audi GTO class, and you'll see beautiful precision with the Nissan GTP class on the road course. However, we'll also be seeing them on the same track at the same time. 12 difficult turns over a historic 3.5-mile circuit is what the drivers are up against today in Daytona Beach. But don't take it from me. Get a sense of what it's like from a driver's perspective of vintage race cars meeting a modernized road racing facility that's packed with history as you hop on board for the GSRC Lap Guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC Audi, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Through the tri-oval, you got to set up for turn 1 right away. The braking into here is going to be very touch and go. Don't be surprised to see drivers lose the rear because of how you're braking and turning at the same time. The transition from the bank into the flat doesn't help either. From off the corner, you got to set up your line through the S's and then immediately swing left for the widest line into the International Horseshoe. There's an access road that'll allow you to get to the power earlier if you use all the pavement available, so use it because it's considered fair game. Drift back across the track, and then you've got to give a big lift to navigate the kink. Make sure and get right on top of that rumble strip. You'll get just a squirt of the gas before you're braking hard down into the Western Horseshoe. Resist the urge to turn in too early because the corner tightens at the center. Feather onto the power so that you don't understeer off, and then swing the car to the right and hit the binders. Turn 6 is critical because it dumps you back onto the oval. But the car likes to understeer when on the power, and if you have to lift to avoid plowing into the outside wall, that'll hurt just as much as getting onto the gas too late. It'll be all about timing and taking the car right to the edge. Now, this is the 2007 version of the track before the repave. You can see the car bouncing around quite a bit over the bumps, but it won't be that much of an issue for the Audi. The real test comes as you approach the braking for the bus stop. The car gets very unstable when you stomp the left pedal too hard. Lose the car on entry into here and expect to find the tire barrier. It's also important to be able to get back on the loud pedal as early as you can without getting a cut course penalty. Once again, you're on the gas for a long, long time through NASCAR 3 and 4, and you won't lift until you brake for turn 1 again. That means inevitably this will be a draft track. Take this time to figure out how much you can gain on the car ahead and plan your attack in case you need it late in the race. And if you're ahead, do your best to maximize the infield to break the draft. But hopefully you kept it together and have now finished a lap around Daytona.
There you see a lap around the older version. Now, the good news is, with this being the modern version, with the new stands and the new pavement. It's essentially just a lot less bumpy. Otherwise, it is completely the same out there. What is not the same is the championship, because we had a round last week, and of course all the points have changed. And you can see, as I mentioned, Fabian Gerber with 23 points over Phil Lake. Now, Phil is here today, but so is Fabian. And we don't know if Phil is going to give a serious run at this championship. He's always kind of said that he's not really looking to try and take this one. Ardo Iamaki being the next one down, 57 points behind Fabian. At this point, it's going to have to take a lot of bad races for the Blue Point Racing driver to lose out on the championship. Fabian Jungbluth is in there tied with John Keefe for 4th place. Let's take a look at the GTP lights now. For that amateur championship, only 4 drivers are competing this season, and Koivisto is barely leading Johnny Bell at this point. Nobody's changed positions, but you can see by the points that it is essentially down to Koivisto and Bell to determine who comes out on top in the GTP lights when this season is over. Let's go over to the 2 Audi championships. Nick, where are those sitting?
Well, like you mentioned, Joe, earlier, Rob Olenek not racing today. That is a 32-point buffer he has over Nick Mukanos. So Mukanos is racing today. And like you said, this is going to be a good opportunity for him to try to close in on those points. He jumped to Milan Arnozzi, winner back at the Nordschleife. There for second. Arnozzi falls down to third, 43 points back behind the lead. He has 4 points above Dennis Neidhart, who jumped to Ben Lafter, too. So a lot of flip-flopping positions there in the GTOs, but all of them still trying to chase Rob Olenek up at the top. Over in the GTUs, we have the Amateur Championship as well that we've been watching briefly. Reed Miller continues to lead that. No more flip-flopping over here. Everyone remaining where they were coming into Mid-Ohio. The top 5, at least. Reed Miller there, 25-point lead over Sergey Serbin. Michael Haynes, Caden Bean a little further back, and James Walker 10 points behind Bean there for 4th.
Thanks for that, Nick. Now, what does this race entail? Because it's honestly a little bit different from typical. This is their endurance format, 60 minutes today, which means you will see at least 1 pit stop out on track. The scoring you can see is 25 points for a win. So even though they will be gaining on Olenek in that GTO championship, you won't be able to overtake him this round, but it will tighten things up significantly, considering Olenek will absolutely not score any points. Now, this race, as always, we are on the iRacing Esports Network. We're glad to have you joining us here today. Hopefully you'll watch for the full race. Obviously, we've got some IndyCar racing happening today. But in the meantime, if you'd like both of those, make sure you subscribe. All you got to do is click the subscribe button on the IESN YouTube page, and you'll get all of the iRacing Kamel GT series in your YouTube feed. Qualifying is underway. Fabian Gerber is currently on the pole. And significantly, I noticed that Jesper Derlicka had a big spin on his first lap around here in qualifying. He's come in today to see if he could handle these Nissans, and thus far in qualifying, looks like he's certainly having trouble. The Texas driver working his way up to the Western Horseshoe, and his last lap of a 140.7 is well off the pace of the rest of the GTP field, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely going to take a lot for him to catch up here. Joni Hagner we're watching in his Audi make runs at this, going for his 5th win of the season today.
His second lap not going to count, but he's still on pole. Milan Arnozzi is currently in second and only 8 100ths behind him. So I think Arnozzi has the opportunity to maybe take that pole away. Let's see if he's any faster. Oh, no, he's 2 tenths down on this lap. Joni is going to have trouble trying to run away, unfortunately, for the Finn, because this track has a lot of draft in those Audis. Reed Miller now coming up, and his second lap is faster, but just barely, only by 3 100ths, so he stays in 7th place on his in his class in the GTOs. Let's see who else we have waiting to put a lap in. Looks like Jesper Derlicka's second one was much more representative. He's going to go up to 7th with that second lap. I think we're waiting on John Keefe as Riley Downey, the Canadian, is done with his qualifying, so he's just having some fun taking the full oval around here. You will be penalized if you try that in the race, but he can get away with it since every car is out on their own. Tanner McCullough, who sits in 8th, has taken both of his laps as well, and his second one also didn't count, interestingly. Guessing that the bus stop chicane is catching a lot of them out. As actually, this is very smart what we're seeing here. Tanner was practicing in the pit entry, and it looks like so is Finazzi.
Yeah, very interesting. It looks like they're going to need a pit stop today with this longer race. So drivers not really used to getting these cars, especially the Audis, slowed down for that. So that's very interesting. Like you said, very smart of them to practice that right before the race.
Pitkanen comes around, and has he finished both laps? Yes, he just finished his second lap, a 45 flat for him. John Key finally gets his time in, and he is just behind Yerlicka. He'll be starting 8th position. I think that should be everybody having completed both their laps. And looking at the weather real quickly to see what we've got out there, it is actually pretty good conditions, 75 degrees, with it being early morning here, 8:30 in the morning virtual standard time. So should be pretty good racing out there with these high speeds, grippy conditions, and 2 beautiful cars about to take to the track. Let's give you the starting grid now that has completed. Fabian Gerber will be on the pole, with Phil Lake starting behind him, actually next to him, really, I should say, on that front row with this rolling start. Justin Albrecht will be starting 3rd, with Dustin Herroder in 4th. John Atkinson Jr. will be P5, and then Jeffrey Garzotto starts 6th. Jesper Derlicka will be 7th, and John Keefe 8th. Stephen Workup 9th, and Sven Schnoss in 10th place. The last 2 cars will be Johnny Bell and Roberto Finazzi in the GTP grid.
Down in the Audis, a pretty big field over here today. Joni Hagner has the pole. Not very surprising there. He's got about a 10th or 2 over Milan Arnozzi in 2nd. That's 13th and 14th overall in the grid. Villi Rolla and Ove Traingrade making up row 8, but row 2 for that class. Dennis Neidhart going to be starting in 5th, with Nick Mukanos right behind him. Reed Miller and Tanner McCullough are going to be making up row 10. Row 11 going to Riley Downey and Sergey Serbin. Behind them, 23rd and 24th going to go to Alexander Veldman and Henry Pitkanen, and then Michael Haynes and Tobias Meyer will round out the 26-car grid we've got today.
See them all now lining up on the back stretch, thankfully only having to do half a lap. And even though it's 8 in the morning, they've already got the fair rides up and running, you could see, although I think nobody looks like they're riding them right now. So I think we'll have to get on iRacing to wake some people up and get them on there. But they're going to follow that Porsche pace car on their way through the bus stop chicane around NASCAR 3 and 4. Then it will release them for 60 minutes of racing here in round 10 of the iRacing Kamel GT Series. We have yet to see Phil Lake take a win this season, despite him being second in the championship and despite him having plenty of speed. So can he maybe do it today? Will the draft offer him the opportunity? What about what we saw in the qualifying for the GTOs? Will Joni Hagner be under pressure by Milan Arnozzi to take that win away from him? Hagner, of course, known for being one of the fastest drivers in that Audi in all of iRacing. Tends to impress wherever he goes in that car. Around the steep banking and off of 4. How will they do with the pit stop? Will anybody be able to use the strategy to their advantage to maybe get a win in? Who knows? We'll see in just a moment's time. The Porsche pace car peels off. Gerber has control, and he immediately accelerates away. Green flag is out here for round 10. They come down to turn 1. Phil Lake immediately under pressure from Justin Albrecht, but he breaks early, and actually Herroder has to get out of it to try and stay out of him. Little side by side coming through turn 1, but otherwise clean. Let's go to the Audis.
Clean here in the Audis as well. They took the green flag coming out of turn 4. It was Milan Arnozzi who was caught napping. He's falling back to about 4th now as he gets overtaken by Dennis Neidhart and Villi Rolla starting on the inside, but it was Joni Hagner out of a rocket down into turn number 1 with the lead.
Boronozzi down to 4th in his class with that poor start, but this is a boon for Neidhart and Ruola, who are now onto the podium. They got to watch out, though. I'm seeing a gap between themselves and Hagner. That's exactly what they don't want.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't want Hagner to pull away, especially this early. I do suspect, however, they might get drafty here once they rejoin the oval. That will definitely help them close into the driver of that number 1 car.
Back up to the prototypes. Looks like we've had an incident with Sven Schnoss, who's spun out on his way to the oval section. So has Fanazzi. I wonder if those two are related. Let's see on the replay here. Yes, indeed. It looks like it was. Hard hit with the wall with that. And as that's happening, Fanazzi was slow coming into the... in lifetime, he was slow coming into the... Oh, Johnny Bell was the one that got a bit of him, it looks like. And then Fanazzi maybe was that one that we just saw getting into the back of Bell. Anyways, Reed Miller got into Fanazzi coming into the bus stop. Oh, and just as we come live, John Atkinson Jr., action happening all over. Atkinson actually has to take to the pit exit. I'm not sure if he hit the wall with that. Ooh, I think he did. We'll see from the DH driver's view. Just clipped it. As all this has been happening, we've had a change for the lead down in the GTOs. Nick?
We have indeed. Willy Rolla, like I suspected, took that drafting to his advantage. He slungshot around Joni Hagner, almost brought Neidhart and Arnozzi behind him. But right now, they are all bunched up pretty well going through the Western Horseshoe.
Finn versus Finn up at the top, with the DH driver following in the form of Neidhart. They come back to the oval. Let's watch this time. We didn't get to see with all the action happening in the prototypes. Let's see how the draft performs. Neidhart with a bad exit off of turn 6 and dropping quick. He's about 0.6 of a second. Let's see what it is once they reach the bus stop.
And you can see Arnozzi close in on him, go to the right side of him, try to get a little bit of momentum to get around him. Not going to catch him up to the bus stop, but he might get a better exit out of the bus stop.
Definitely closes in under braking distance, Neidhart on Hagner. It's down to 0.4 of a second as they come through NASCAR 3 and 4. And Hagner, in the meantime, also gaining on Rolla with the draft he's got on him. Neidhart definitely up with these top two. There's a 3-car fight. Neidhart's going to lift. So they're going to stay in order. Hagner not interested in dueling this early in the race. And from turn 1, let's see Milan also closed the gap. He's now with him. He's brought Trangrade and Mukanos with him. Mukanos, I feel the one who's really got to do something here. Since he's second in the championship, he's sitting down in 6th. He's got to try and take as many points as he can today with how things sit with Olenek.
Yeah, he's looking very patient here right from the get-go. He's got a bit up to Ove Trangrade. Hasn't shown much pace to be able to get around him or Arnozzi in front of him.
And as all this has been going on, Justin Albrecht has gotten ahead of his teammate Lake into second in the prototypes and is now right on the back of Fabian Gerber. Ooh, but he has a hard time coming onto the throttle out of the bus stop. You can see he was right underneath, and now he's a whole 5 car lengths back.
Definitely closed that gap up in a hurry, but like he said, Albrecht now going to take a look to the outside of Gerber for the lead.
He's got the run. Gerber's got the desired line, though, coming into the corner. Albrecht deep on the brakes, and does he have it? Yes, he keeps it nice and tidy through the first corner. Move Albrecht up to P1.
Bill Lake staying in tow with these guys. Right behind them, Jesper Drilica, who's moved up 3 spots from the start. He's up to 4th, and he's caught this pack.
Certainly is making it interesting. Meanwhile, Rolla is up ahead of Hagner still, but behind them, it's a little bit of a fight between Arnozzi and Trangrade. And in fact, Trangrade's losing out because Mukanos gets the inside down through turn 1. They go side by side. Trangrade completely off into the grass through turn 2. He gets back on without too much drama, except he loses a position.
Yeah, such a heavy car there in the Audis to be able to control through the S's, especially side by side. And he went for that spot over Arnotzi, lost the momentum. Mukanos was able to slip in there and steal that top 5 position. There's another point to him to go towards the championship run, though.
Great stuff. So we've got a Dirty Torque driver up in the lead in the prototypes. And it is a Dirty Torque driver chasing in the points championship. I wonder if Albrecht is going to try and back up Gerber to help out Phil Lake. You can see Lake is catching right now. It doesn't look like Justin has any interest in trying to back him up as he's pulling away. Don't forget, though, behind them, having jumped up to 4th place since the start, is Jesper Derlicka. The Texan is chasing and has a legitimate shot at fighting for the lead because it is now a 4-car pack for these Nissans.
Yeah, right. Watching all the action unfold in front of him, getting very hot down into the International Horseshoe. Almost got into the back of Phil Lake. Had to take a bit of evasive action there, but he keeps it clean, keeps it within the pack as well. Doesn't lose enough speed to lose these guys.
Certainly stalking them as we ride on board with Jesper. He's got a good view of what's in front of him and what he has to do. As this is happening, we've got a challenge for the lead in the GTOs because Milan Arnotzi is trying to go the long way around to turn 1, all the way back from, I believe he was in 4th place before, but he settles for 3rd instead. Hagner fends him off, and Ruola stays in the lead.
Yeah, Hagner, who was back and forth, like you said, with a huge run on the outside. He almost tried to overtake everyone there. He almost got up to the lead side by side with Ruola and Hagner, but he's going to have to settle for 3rd for now. They are all bunched up so tight together there through the horseshoe.
They pull the gap to the car behind them, which is Tanner McCullough in 7th place. 6 cars broken away at this point. Don't look like there's any signs that they're going to give up that gap to McCullough. Even though they are fighting quite a bit, the draft so powerful up front, they're not losing time. They come around NASCAR 1 and 2. Hagner, each time he gets a run, he lifts on the chase for the lead behind Ruola. He just does not put the car side by side into any of these braking zones or even on the oval portion. This time they're going to be single file through the bus stop and cleanly through.
You mentioned Hagner lifting a lot, not really challenging Ruola for the lead. I wonder how much thought is going into fuel conservation there for Hagner, maybe trying to just ride in the wake behind him.
That's a good point. Certainly not the case for Milan Arnotzi. This time he gets a good enough run that he is going to go all the way to the front, and they're going to bring Dennis Neidhart along. He's side by side when they come into the braking for turn 1 with Vili Ruola. He has to work the long way around. Oh, and way too deep for Milan Arnotzi. They're going to go 3 wide. Is this going to work out? Dennis Neidhart is the one who comes out on top. A little bit through the gravel for Vili Ruola, but he manages to get through turn 2. Now we've got Nick Mukanos, who decides it's time to take action. He slips into 3rd place, getting by Ruola. And with all that, Ruola goes from 1st to 4th in the process of just a couple turns.
Yeah, Ruola and Hagner really got hurt with that. Back to 4th and 5th. They were battling for the lead there, and Dennis Neidhart able to slip through there and overtake everyone. Take advantage of that situation very well. He is now your leader in the GTOs.
Despite his slip up in turn 1, Arnotzi retains that 2nd place. And we've got a battle for the lead now in the prototypes as Gerbers manages to get by Albrecht into turn 1. That puts the Dirty Torque drivers next to each other once more. And since we keep talking about fuel saving, we have Jesper Derlicka at the tail of the train. A little bit of wheel spin out of the International Horseshoe. But from what I've seen of Jesper Derlicka in previous races that involve fuel saving, he is a master at that. So I would not be surprised if this number 9 car just sat back at the tail of this 4-car train and just let them pull him along.
Wouldn't be too surprised. All that fuel conservation. While that was happening, Milan Arnotzi actually blew through the bus stop, decided not to take it. So slow down penalty for him, but despite that, he had such a big gap back to Mukanos and Ruola. I don't think he's going to lose any spots.
In fact, it doesn't look like he lost that much time to Neidhart either. The draft so powerful, he was able to reel him in after giving that time back. This 6-car train cannot get away from one another. Your order currently is Neidhart, Arnozzi, Mukanos, Ruola, Hagner, and Trankere for your top spots. And yes, Dennis, you are on YouTube. Whoever Tim is out there, big hello to you. Glad you got your shout out. This has been a fun race so far, but all this fun, eventually someone might lose an eye here. They fight as hard as they have into turn 1. I kind of worry that someone's going to make contact and we're going to get some severe damage. And we know what severe damage does on an already aero-limited car here, Nick.
Yeah, it's a very wide track to get around, very broad track, very fast turns, just a little bit of aero damage that will hurt your entire lap, especially on the oval portion here. You can ride in the wake of someone else for a little bit, but that's only going to help to some extent.
They've calmed down a little bit, so maybe they've been heeding my advice. Milan Arnozzi is gaining on Neidhart, but he gives a big lift as they come up to the first corner. Ruola is going to be overtaken by Hagner, though, in the draft, and Hagner taking a little bit of a peek to the outside of Mukanos for that 3rd place, but slots back into line. With all this happening and with all them calming down slightly, why don't we... Oh, as Hagner goes a little wide through the international horse, just a small drama. Let's go back to McCullough behind them because he's got a train of cars following him from 7th place. That's Sergei Serbin and Riley Downey. So it's slightly smaller, but it is a clump of cars working together.
Yeah, Tanner McCullough has been leading this little pack here. That gap has actually opened up a little bit. Serbin was right on the back of him, and Downey has caught Serbin a little bit. Continues to reel him in just a little bit at a time.
We don't need to get a replay of it, but just an update. Phil Lake used the slipstream to get by Albrecht on the oval. So the 2nd place in the championship is now 2nd place on track. Already a quarter of the way through this 60-minute race. Gerber is your leader in the prototypes. Neidhart is your leader in the GTOs. While we had quite a fascinating few opening laps, putting it lightly, with drivers making contact with each other, the walls and spinning all over the place, it's finally cooled out, and I think drivers just focusing on getting to the end now.
Definitely trying to log off laps here in the late going.
And you know, we haven't talked about traffic yet. Let me see where we sit on that. Oh, actually, it looks like we're getting ready to have it very soon because Alexander Veldman is being caught by Gerber.
Yeah, Gerber, the leaders in the GTPs coming through the tri-oval right now down into turn number 1. GTO leaders right now smack dab in the middle of the infield. So yeah, just in a couple of laps, it looks like they will meet.
Actually, right now, because Veldman is staying to the outside. This is exactly where they don't want to catch him. Oh, Veldman actually has a problem. Nice catch of the car. Oh, no, and wheel spin for Jesper Derlicka. He goes spinning. He has now lost touch with the top 3.
Wonder if he was caught off guard by Veldman being there. Maybe just a little hesitation to throw him off.
I can't give too much criticism to the Texan driver because the wheel spin on these cars is very easy to get with the turbo lag. So not a regular in this series, at least on the broadcast. So the number 9 can be forgiven somewhat. Though I'm sure he would like to be up with the podium instead of 10 seconds behind, which we look at now. Gerber, Lake, and Albrecht still in order.
Oh, we might want to check the GTO lead. They got just about 3 wide through the tri-oval. Arnotzi looks like he's going to stay at the front of that, but he goes to the outside, and Dennis Neidhart able to slip back through. Mukano's up to third. Hagner right behind him.
Oh, I don't know how long that's going to last because Hagner's taking advantage of Mukano's checking up in the International Horseshoe, but there's no grip on that outside line. He almost actually falls victim to Joni Hagner, or excuse me, to Willy Rolla, who nearly gets by for fourth, but they all get back in line single file.
Drivers definitely trying to make more and more moves. I think a lot of them throwing that fuel conservation out the window and just trying to go for it at this point. But at the same time, trying to keep the ultimate goal in mind, getting to the end.
And you know what? I was wrong. Tanner McCullough had the pace, and he has caught this top group. It is now a 7-car train up here.
Yeah, all of their battling, I'm sure, helped, but McCullough has been slowly reeling them in, and he's trying to get a little bit of tow from Ove Traingrade right in front of him here on the backstretch. Looks like he has reeled him in, though.
Nicely done by the number 4 car. Through the bus stop they go. Back onto the oval. And it makes me wonder if maybe a couple of these cars up at the front might get in contact with one another and say, hey, let's stop fighting. Let's take an early pit stop, get away from everybody, and see what we can do with an alternate strategy. Arnotzi, in the meantime, is more interested in getting back to the front once again. He goes to the high side of Neidhart. Last time he outbraked himself. Can he manage it this time into the corner? He's clear to take to the inside. A big wobble under braking. The car slides wide, but he uses the 4-wheel drive to get it going. Once again, he is now up in front of Neidhart.
We've seen Arnotzi do that quite a lot in the last dozen laps or so. Go very wide through turn 1, get very slippery out there, and be able to hold on to it. Shows you just how aggressive he's willing to drive today and just how much he wants this lead.
They've got some traffic, but it is a lap down. It is Finazzi back there in the Nissan. They're not going to get a blue flag for him. That makes it extra treacherous. So hopefully the number 23 can pick his way through if he decides to. This could be dangerous for the Italian driver. I think we're going to have a change for second place because Hagner's pulling tow from Neidhart. And he's looking on the outside, coming into the bus stop. Oh, but he's going to brake early. I was going to say, Hagner knows better than to try and force that issue.
Been a really solid lap so far for Hagner. He just out-racing Neidhart on all of the turns, all of the corner exits. No surprise he's been able to close in. Looks like he's going to go to the outside and maybe even bring Mukanos behind him. But last time Mukanos went with the cars in front of him, went with Arnotzi, he got hung to dry on the outside.
He's getting a little dicey out there. Not sure if Hagner was trying to give a side draft and then ducked away from him, but he's got enough that he's side by side with our leader. Falls back in the braking zone. Neidhart now to the inside of him. Hagner slips back to third, but Mukanos would like to take that away. In fact, he does. Hagner has been trying to get back up to the front. Just, it's eluded him thus far. Oh, that was tight behind them. Finazzi spinning in front of McCullough.
And look who's right behind him. It's the GTP leaders.
And I think Finazzi, well, no, they don't have an incident limit. He just disappeared. Maybe he just called it a day.
Gerber, Lake, and Albrecht have caught this front pack of GTOs. This is going to get dicey.
Traingrade's trying to stay off the apex, let them through, while at the same time not lose the draft. He goes high. And though they are going to have quite a bit of speed, so are the Audis. They are boxy, but they've got grunt. You can see them managing to take McCullough in the first part, and he starts to gain some speed, and he stays with him. It's in the braking. Oh, and a little bit of a look to the inside from Phil Lake on the leader, Fabian Gerber. in traffic and still trying to make passes.
Gerber's going to take the outside here in NASCAR's 3 and 4. Got 4 Audis left. I'm sure he'd love to get by them all before they get to turn 1.
I was just going to say, and they're going to get side by side, almost 4 wide for a second, and then I think they saw them coming. One's going to get him, two's going to get him side by side for the lead. And the GTPs, Phil Lake gets aggressive, goes for the pass on Fabian Gerber, backs out of it. Behind them, it's going to stay with Milan Arnozzi in the lead, but finally Hagner gets ahead of Neidhart. Oh, but he gives it up. Maybe a missed shift coming through turn 2. Neidhart gets back to P2. That was frantic.
And Hagner slides right behind him. Mukano's almost able to get by him. He took a little peek to the inside there, but it'll slide behind him in 4th.
I think we've got the opportunity finally to show what happened with Finazzi. Let's see what the replay shows here. This was in front of McCullough. So you're going to see this number 23 give a real scare the number 4 car. See how close it looked from inside McCullough's cockpit. He's just trying to run his own race. He's in his own battle with, I think that was Trangerade next to him. Yee-hoo. That is heart in your throat stuff. So as we come back live, Arnozzi's still your leader in the prototypes of this group, 7 cars. Tanner just keeping touch barely with Rolla ahead of him. He can't lose too much more, though. I think Neidhart's going to the front. He's trying anyways.
Looks that way. He's got Hagner right behind him, giving him a bump draft.
Arnozzi doesn't want to give it up. He's holding around the outside. Hagner would sure love to try and get up to the top spot once more, as he finally got it done through here. Neidhart was a little bit deep, and wow, Mukanos actually got wheel-to-wheel and banged doors with Arnozzi coming through turn 1, and they both came out the other side.
Arnozzi is looking really strong today, flexing all the muscles he can. Falls back to 3rd for the time being, but I would not be surprised if he retakes that lead as they get back onto the oval.
Juan is not shy, that is for sure. He wants to try and take a win, and he wants to do it from the lead as much as he can. Work their way out of the Western Horseshoe. Your order is now Neidhart, Hagner, Arnozzi, Mukanos, Ruola, McCullough, Trangerade, and then they've got a Nissan in the mix once again. Jesper Derlicka is at the back of the group.
Hagner going to jump to the outside. He feels as if he's got to run to get around Neidhart. He might have help from Arnozzi behind him. Arnozzi might look to make it 3 wide, though. Oh,
this is going 3 wide. Neidhart saw it as soon as he got that 3 wide call. He said, screw this. He goes back to 3rd place. And Milan Arnozzi moves himself up to the front.
I expected Arnozzi to get back to the front of the oval. I didn't expect him to get there before the bus stop.
It's interesting to see who's willing to take risks out here and who is playing it safe. This is a lapped car they're coming up on. Michael Haynes stays out of the way just as Derlicka gets through. That went better than I thought it would, thankfully.
Little peek to the outside for Hagner. He might try the over-under, big slide out of Arnozzi in front of him. But they all maintain positions 1, 2, 3.
The Nissans, here comes Roeder, showing off the braking power of the GTP cars. He gets to the inside, but he puts Arnozzi offline. Unfortunately, the 4-wheel drive is really good off corners. He almost repasses a Roeder. Now he streaks away. Somehow he retains the lead in that.
Got dicey for a moment behind him as well. McCullough getting around Trangerade. Maintaining that position actually around Trangerade. Trangerade just for a moment looks like he was about to get around him, with Rolla and Mukanos getting very shuffled up behind him as well.
You know, I don't like draft tracks all the time, but this has spiced up the racing in Camel, which is saying something because it's usually pretty intense. And I've enjoyed the hell out of this, if I'm honest. We're not even halfway through this race as Hagner gives another go on Arnotzi, who goes defensive down into the bus stop.
I think the drivers are enjoying it too. They look to be having quite a bit of fun out there. I'm sure some of them are glad and also a little annoyed that this is the 60-minute race of the season.
Well, even more reason, I think, for some of them to take it patient because they've got more time to settle it out.
Yeah.
Hagner, could he finally get back up to the front? It's been a while. He had the pole. He was next to this man, Arnotzi, but he's going to break early into this corner. Side by side, both with Neidhart and Hagner, as well with Roll and McCullough. Just as they've got Jeffrey Garzotto coming through.
Big stack up there with Hagner, McConos, and Rolla.
And apologies to fans of the GTP cars. I know we've spent a lot of time, but it's been a lot more calm between those three than it has with these 7 at the front of the GTOs. As you can see, no change. Gerber is ahead of Lake, ahead of Albrecht. They've got 14 seconds to Derlicka. Ever since they dropped Derlicka with his spin, Jesper has lost time.
Yeah, we keep talking about these Audi drivers being patient. It's the Nissan drivers that are really being the patient ones today. I think they're just going to ride this out until they have to, go for it.
You see Hagner going around the outside of Dennis. Dennis, is he going to fight it? He is going to fight it just as the Nissan comes in, forces it too wide. Can he keep it together? This puts Dennis offline, which checks up Joni Hagner. Oh, and it's a big checkup. Cars making contact with each other. Ove Trangrade is the one that comes out with the best advantage. He swings wide on the oval, but this loses them contact to Dennis Neidhart and Milan Arnotzi.
Looks like Ville Rolla was the big loser in all of that. He's got the most damage, and it really stacked him up the most as well.
Mukanos is trying to go around the high side through the tri-oval. Hagner's not going to allow him to have it. He goes deep on the brakes into turn 1. Trangrade still using this to his advantage to get up to 4th place and give chase on the fin.
Rolla trying to stay with him. He's got a lot of front end damage. We talked about the aero damage here at this track being so effective. He's got to stay in the draft of Tanner McCullough in front of him.
We see an onboard of that checkup. I'm trying to figure out who was at the tail of it. Oh, and we'll get to that in a second because Dustin Heroder was this out of turn 6. I think he lost the rear.
Like yeah. A little bit of wheel spin, a little hop there. He was running 5th at the time. Looks like Derlicka would get around him for 4th rather. Looks like Derlicka is going to get around him.
Yeah, good news for him is that they've paved off the inside now that they've modernized Daytona with the new stands. Let's see, who is at the back of this group? You said it was Rolla who had
I think
got
Rolla
damage,
was towards
right?
the back.
Yeah, he is. Here you see it. Love to see the onboard because I wonder. Oh, and then McCullough looks like he also got a bit of it. Either McCullough or Rolla.
It's gone over with Rolla, I think, because he got a hit from behind from McCullough. That boosted him forward. I don't think he was trying to. He had avoided the checkup, but then McCullough had not behind. He's got a little bump into him there.
Oof. That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah.
Trying to do everything right and just everything out of your control.
And Rolla has really begun to lose touch too to this pack.
Yeah. Turn out the lights. The party's over. I think Ville, unless he can... Well, you know what? He could come in and get that repaired. Depends on how confident he feels about his pace and how much he feels that they could repair the car. Regardless, this helps out Milan Arnotzi, who's still trying to shake Dennis Neidhart. He's definitely within the draft. And just as I say that, it looks like Trangrade has regained enough ground that I think he has caught Joni Hagner. So as we watch this real quick, let's make sure that Joni's not going to make a move. He is going to look to the inside of Dennis, but he's going to stay in third. We're going to lose picture for just a moment, I think, as they come onto the second part of the oval. Oh, maybe not. We got to stay with it for now because Hagner is going to go for it, coming with a good run off of the bus stop. That's the Nissan of Stephen Warkup, who's running in 7th. He's just going to lap them. And Hagner falls back in line. So apologies for losing picture just momentarily as we sort something out behind the scenes, but we'll keep you up to speed as what's going on, and we're already back. So no real issues in and out. Coming through the International Horseshoe, Hagner still trails behind Neidhart. And now definitely Ove Trangrade has caught them. They are dropping Nick Mukanos, which is bad news for one of our championship hopefuls who's sitting down in 5th. Oh, look at this. We got some cars in, splitting it halfway. Serbin is in, but Ruol has actually decided to end his race. Well, that is disappointing. Maybe the damage was too much.
Yeah, it must have been pretty severe damage. Might have gotten to the radiator or something.
Hopefully we can get Billy into our ready for interview room, see if he could come talk to us, tell us what exactly happened there. Meanwhile, we're back with Hagner, still side by side with Dennis Neidhart, deeper on the brakes down into the bus stop. So that is going to give second place to Joni as he looks ahead to Milan Arnozzi. Quick update, though, if we could, on the GTP leaders, because Phil Lake is still with Gerber, but his friend Justin Albrecht has fallen about 2 seconds off. I'm pretty certain that is away from the draft.
Yeah, he's definitely fallen back. Now, Phil Lake, and the opposite, like you said, has caught Fabian Gerber, and he's really stuck with him, but I've kept one eye on this, and it doesn't look like he's going for any position there. As that's all happening, Dennis Neidhart has come in the pits, our first front runner out of the Audis to pit.
And nobody came with him, which is fascinating. I hope this doesn't bite him. Hopefully he can get back out safely and quickly. Riding on board with second place Phil Lake. Just riding in that tow. They might actually come out in traffic of their own because Dennis Neidhart is just exiting right now, and I think they might come out right behind him. Indeed, this is going to be horrible timing because Dennis is just up the road in the middle of the road course portion.
This might be exactly what Phil Lake would like to see, but Gerber so good at getting around traffic as well. It's just one car too, so looks like they're going to take to the outside in the Western Horseshoe. At least Gerber.
Great heads up from Dennis to see it coming and stay to the right side of the track, but they're struggling to get by. Gerber's going to maybe get through. He splits them, and now Phil Lake. You can see how much that four-wheel drive helps. They just cannot overtake coming off the corners.
Yeah, that really stacked up Fabian Gerber. It helped Phil Lake momentarily, but it looks like Lake not going to be able to get enough tow down the backstretch to get side by side with Gerber. I don't know even if he did, if he was going to do that.
Let's stay with this, but Stephen Warkup has also pitted. I believe we had Albrecht take his stop. I wondered if he'd pull that since he lost the draft. I mean, at this point, might as well play a little bit of a different card.
It's all by himself. It's already going to hurt him. So
Riley Downey in the Audis has pitted. Johnny Bell coming in. Saw Johnny Bell take a little bit of contact in the first lap. I'm surprised he didn't pit sooner for repairs. Guess it wasn't hurting him too badly. Checking back in on the GTO leaders, Hagner's run down Arnozzi, and he's left Ove Trangrade behind by about a second. And if I'm honest, Nick, I feel like this plays into the hands of Joni Hagner of all people. A two-car fight for him is probably a lot more simple than 7 cars duking it out.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's Joni Hagner too. I mean, it's all falling in the hands of him. Already a very veteran, experienced driver. Even a 7-car battle, I think he'd be the best one in. But yeah, I think this is a good situation for him. As Arnozzi going to duck into the pits.
Well, I did not expect this.
No.
Although, I guess if he thinks that Hagner's quicker than him, this is probably the best thing he could do. Not give Hagner a tow, come in, and take a stop. McCullough's going to follow him.
I've got to imagine Arnozzi, with as much as we've seen him out front too, and as much as we've seen him be aggressive, he's probably saved the least amount of fuel of all of these guys.
Okay, so what does this do for Dennis Neidhart? We're looking at 23 to 25 second pit stops.
Coming onto the front stretch now.
Arnozzi's just pulls out. Heading down to the cones. He gets to it.
Neidhart's going to get him.
Neidhart is through. But not by much.
Yeah, Arnozzi still getting up to speed. Same with McCullough behind him. Neidhart going to jump him, but I don't know. Arnozzi is right there.
I don't think it'll change the story too much because they're going to have the draft on him. So his best hope would have been to break the draft and get a gap, which is not the case. 22 minutes left to go on the clock. See that Rotor is pitting in the prototypes.
So I'm curious to see if Hagner, Trangrade, and or Mucanos come in this time. There are 3 Audis left out there in the lead.
I mean, what do you
look like? They are.
What do you do if you're Hagner, Nick? It looks like he's going to stay out. I mean, do you think he's got the pace to try and gap them?
He might. He's got a little bit of draft help as well, but I don't know. It's going to be close. He's got Trangrade behind him. Looks like Mucanos came in that lap. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tight either way. I think we're going to see something very similar to what we saw there with Neidhart and Arnozzi. Very close coming out of the pits, but I think the draft is just going to equalize it all back when they get together.
Mucanos taking tires. Seems like that's a pretty common call in this race. Which also surprises me a bit because I wouldn't think Daytona would eat tires that much. Oh, we're hearing that does not cost them time in the pit stop, so that explains it then. Down for that battle for what could potentially be the lead. Arnozzi certainly likes going in deep into that first corner, but it doesn't give it up to Dennis Neidhart. Where did Mucanos come on? Ooh. Mucanos is 2 seconds back. This is bad news for Nick. I fear for the number 11 that he may have lost a chance at a podium or a victory.
And probably not great news for Hagner or Trangrade either, because they're not too much further in front of where Mucanos was when he came in.
Come in. We're watching them now off of turn 4. Both of them.
Yep. Coming in together. So they're going to keep that draft help. But I don't know. It's not looking great from my point of view, at least. Arnozzi coming onto the backstretch right now.
This is a critical moment in this race for the GTO field. Hagner and Trangrade both in their stalls. Arnozzi coming out of the bus stop. You can see that's Neidhart chasing in the green and purple car. McCullough in the blue machine, trailing both of them. Dennis thinking about trying to pass. He's going to go up to the high side.
That'll help the pitters just a little bit.
especially if they go side by side. But Traegerade jumps Hagner. Well, he did jump Hagner in the pits, but then he lets him back through on the pit exit. And they're both out and they're both ahead. But are they far enough ahead to break the draft? It is right on the cusp.
Neidhart got around Arnotzi there. We saw, looks like they are closing in on Traegerade, but I don't know how quickly.
About a second and a half. They could just about catch him, I think.
It's looking decent for Hagner, not so much for Traegerade.
And our leader has pitted. We missed Fabian Gerber coming in, and he's since gone out. He's in third place. And, well, oh, he's behind Albrecht. Albrecht has jumped him. How did this work out?
Had to have been a bad stop from Gerber, because I didn't see anything too special out of Albrecht's stop.
Yeah, it's 2 seconds slower, but he was only about 2 seconds behind Phil Lake. So maybe Albrecht was just better on in and out laps. Phil Lake continues on himself. He's got to come in at some point here, because I understand 40 minutes is pretty close, which is the usual race time for the prototypes. Only other of the prototypes who has not pitted is Garzotto. He sits in fourth.
Change for position on screen in the GTO field. McCullough going to get around Arnotzi, it looks like, on the inside, but might not be for long. McCullough backing out of it as they head down into turn number 1.
Dennis going to take the point. Arnotzi back in line in fourth. McCullough, P5. Seems to be a battle between Traegerade and Hagner for now. Norway versus Finland. We need to see if we get any other pitters. All of our GTOs have come in and out. So no wait for those drivers. Ooh, we do have a change for position in fifth in the GTPs, because Jesper Derlicka and Dustin Heroder are duking it out for that spot.
Yeah, after we saw Heroder's incident earlier, well, actually we saw Derlicka with an incident first, and then Heroder a couple laps later. They've kind of balanced each other out, and they've been close to each other ever since. But now they are very close.
Stay with this fight. Jesper looking strong in the infield. But Phil Lake goes around for another lap. I'm amazed that he's going this long. He must have saved some great fuel.
He was riding behind Albrecht for Gerber for quite some time.
I think Jesper's right foot needs to go on a diet. It may help him save fuel, but it's a little bit too heavy coming off the corners for these Nissans.
It's the same spot we saw him have issues earlier too. Right in the infield there.
So as he mows the grass, he will return only in sixth place. He lost out one spot to Heroder, but it is a lot of time up to him. I believe Arnotzi and Neidhart had a little bit more side-by-side. Don't really need a replay of this. It's been a lot of what we've seen over and over again down into turn 1. Neidhart comes out on top. Arnotzi back to fourth. Minutes to go now. Still waiting on Lake and Garzotto, the only two to take their stops. Oh, and Derlicka had another spin. This one was out of the bus stop. I'm not sure that we need to show this. We've already seen 2 of his spins, so you get the idea. He doesn't lose a position because John Atkinson Jr. is still a whole minute behind. Whoa, Phil Lake had a big moment though. Henry Pitkinen was sideways in the first corner, and with inches to spare, Phil Lake sneaks through.
Yeah, scary moment for Lake. I'm sure he's wondering if he should have come into the pits that lap. He stayed out for one more circuit at least. So close there through turn one.
He's picking and losing it. He can see it, and he has to pick which side. Last second, he eventually gets through on the right-hand side. So a little bit of bad news for the GTOs. Arnozi's dropping off. It is now 3 seconds back from Trangarade. And Trangarade himself dropping off of Hagner, who's used traffic to his advantage. He's got about 1.2 seconds back to the Norwegian.
Yeah, Trangarade there. That's Michael Haynes' lap down GTO car, helping Trangarade just a little bit. Try to reel back in Hagner.
And Atkinson is the Nissan that you're seeing trying to get by. I think this should be easier for the number 13 coming up onto the oval. Car picks up speed and just going around the high side. Now he's able to leave him be. Garzotto has taken his pit stop. And he's coming out just as Riley Downey, unfortunately, has ended his race in a big way through turn one. And in fact, he has had 2 incidents. So he spun once on his way into the corner. I think are we going to be able to see it here? Is this NASCAR 3 and 4? Yes, it looks like. He's going to be in a little bit of a battle here. Loses it with the awkward braking on the inside line. And then let's stick with it once he gets the car going once again. Doesn't hit anything this time. Lights up the rears. That may be what did him in. Because as he tries to get going, suddenly, whoop.
Valiant effort.
Fortunately, not good enough for one. He's had to take it to the pits with that smoking engine being done for the day. Somebody send the stewards over to check out Phil Lake's car afterwards for an extra fuel cell. 12 minutes left to go. Surely he's got to come in.
Oh, he heard you.
Now it is. There we go.
He figured out that they were onto him.
30 seconds back to his teammate Albrecht. And Phil Lake, as we take a little break from the visuals and come back now, has come to his stall. Justin Albrecht, who has been actually keeping the gap to Fabian Gerber. Fabian's not been able to run him down, which fascinates me. Phil Lake stationary. Looking for about an 18-second stop to be with his teammate, but his teammate is at full speed and gets by Phil Lake just as Fabian Gerber comes around. Phil's got to be smart on the powers. They're almost going to be side by side coming up to the International Horseshoe. Fabian knows it. He's got the inside, deep on the brakes, down into the right-hander, and the hairpin gives P2 back to Fabian Gerber. But unfortunately for Phil Lake, his teammate has taken over the lead solidly.
Yeah, big lead now for Justin Albrecht out in front. It looks like he might have a little bit of traffic in front of him to possibly slow him down.
Wonder if Lake was fuel saving. He was
hanging. Maybe
he was hanging with Gerber.
Might have been a little too aggressive on that fuel conservation. Hard to tell.
Either way, his main championship rival, Fabian Gerber, is ahead of him right now, and that's exactly what he does not want. And his teammate, Justin Albrecht, is about 2 seconds ahead. Not really much a help right now to try and slow up Gerber, especially when I suspect that Albrecht is, at this point, thinking win.
Oh, Phil Lake has had a big problem.
Oh, no. And was this... Oh, this was with the same car that he just avoided, Pitkinen. And it looks
like Pitkinen, yeah.
So Pitkinen misses the chicane as Phil Lake himself loses the car. And as he's trying to collect it, poor Henry couldn't have known that the Nissan was suddenly going to appear in front of him. What a bizarre set of circumstances.
That was an odd crash, you're right. Very interesting. Looked like Montoya in the jet dryer over in turn 3.
Thankfully, no spilled fuel. Well, sometimes the racing gods are not on your side, and Phil Lake seems to have been on their horrible side this whole season long as he's found the worst of many incidents. But this is great news for Dustin Heroder, who has now got himself up to the podium.
Heroder looking for his first podium of the season, so this is a great opportunity for him. He's got quite a ways back for everyone else, so looking good for him so far.
Sure, the DH driver is smiling out on track, even though he's 41 seconds behind the next car in line in his class. He does have 21 seconds. Back to Garzotto, who's in fourth, so there's really no stress for him. He just has to bring it home. What about the battle for the lead in the GTOs? Because we haven't looked at it in a while, and I think that we can say that Trangarade has lost touch for sure.
Yeah, Hagner just so strong, especially when there's no draft involved. Trangarade just getting by the lap car of Alexander Veldman, which helped him a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to help him enough. Trangarade needs a big mistake out of Hagner to close in on him.
It's a battle for best of the rest. Namely, third place, Neidhart, Arnozzi, McCullough, in a three-car battle for P3.
Yeah, we saw Arnozzi very strong in the first run here. He's going to go to the outside of Neidhart. That's the Arnozzi I think we were expecting to see here on this second run.
But he also tends to come deep into this first corner every time and go wide. And
like that.
Does it again. Yeah. That
but
just
despite
might be
that,
his
he's able to
line.
hold on.
That might be the way that he just likes to run it, because he certainly finds the power coming off there. Neidhart wings back in P4.
Yeah, we've talked about the four-wheel drive for these Audis kicking in so much today, almost so that they are as fast as the Nissans exiting corners, and Milan Arnozzi using that to his full advantage, especially there through turn 1. Seems to be working for him, though, because he got that pass done.
For Milan Arnozzi, VTEC just kicked in. So, as we get close to the end, we've had a high bit of attrition. I think we only have about 18 cars running left. It appears to be. Sven Schnoss is the last car still running. He's in the prototypes. He's scored 21st, but he's many, many laps down as he's trying to make positions up. Indeed, out of 26 cars that started this race, I see quite a few of them grayed out. We need to watch Dennis Neidhart. Gonna have some traffic of his own. That's Heroder going on the high side. He's going to leave these 3B without any sort of problems. A little bit of a lift from Neidhart. Thinking about the inside. McCullough thought about it as well, except to the outside, and he also lifted. Oh, that looks way too deep this time from Arnozzi, and yet again he pulls away.
Man,
he's found something with that.
he really has. It is impressive, and even, I mean, Neidhart was looking there the last 2 laps to try to duck in there and take the spot. Most drivers would see someone swing to the outside there and expect to be able to take advantage of it, but despite Neidhart with a flawless turn, Arnozzi just able to get down the power in a different way.
In front of him, that is the lap car of Veldman. He's trying to, I thought he was going to stay out of the way. He gets a little bit of a checkup for Arnozzi. Doesn't hurt him too much. He stays ahead of Neidhart and McCullough.
Arnozzi's able to get around him. Here come Neidhart and McCullough around him. Big run for Neidhart and McCullough, though, on our notesy.
Are they going to try it? Looks like no. They are just waiting for the last lap. I think they know the score. As that was happening, bad news for Jeffrey Garzotto fans. He's lost a position as he had a spin coming through the Western Horseshoe. Gave one up to Jesper Derlicka.
It's going to bump him down to, looks like 5th.
Yep.
Actually, looks like only 5 Nissans remain on the lead lap.
Yeah, John Atkinson Jr. is going to be the next one down, but he's 35 seconds behind. Three and a half minutes left to go. Wait a minute. When did Fabian Gerber get to the lead? Fabian Gerber is leading the prototypes. What happened? Looking to see Justin Albrecht. If he had a problem, it's a ways back. I'm trying to find it on mine. Yeah. Many laps ago.
Oh my goodness. This was back when Phil Lake maybe had his incident. No. Had to have been when they came out of the pits.
It was behind John Keefe, and this was maybe like 7 or 8 laps ago. It was a long time. He spun the car, and that's all it took for Fabian Gerber to sneak through. So we're not going to be able to see the action of where that lead handed over, but apologies to our prototype fans for missing the action. Albrecht, who had it in the bag, now hands even more points over to Fabian Gerber, who is his teammate's rival. In the meantime, the battle for the lead is very close between Hagner and Trangerade. While he split it apart to about 2.5 seconds, Trangerade was not willing to give it up. He reeled back in Hagner, and now he is within the draft.
Trangrade's going to have to work really hard at this. He's only got a couple laps left.
Question is, though, I mean, we've seen how powerful the draft is. I think if he's within about half a second, he's got a shot at the win. And it's all about positioning your car. Hagner probably knows that. Does he try to give up the lead with about a lap to go? Or does he risk it and try to fend him off and get a good run out of the bus stop?
It's so hard to tell. I mean, the draft is huge. If you can get through that bus stop cleanly and you've got a car in front of you, you might be able to close in on him, and you might be able to set yourself up for a side-by-side finish at the line, but Trangrade seems to be falling off a little bit there.
Oh, you're right. It's up to 9/10 of a second. Is he possibly damaged as well that he can't catch him on the straight line? And if that's the case, Hagner's sitting pretty.
Reels him back in the bus stop, though, if he can get out of here cleanly.
Just a little bit high while Hagner stays nice and low. He's going to get within the slipstream. Let's watch this real quick to see how much he gains on NASCAR 3 and 4 through the oval. He's gaining, but he drops off. Maybe he short-fueled it?
That's what I was wondering. Hopefully his fuel is okay. Be a bad time to have to try to save fuel. He doesn't seem to be riding directly behind. Oh, as Hagner goes a little bit wide.
And they are actually going to get this and one more lap to go because Gerber's taking the white flag just now. He's coming from the oval to the tri-oval, and the number 2 car is now 4.5 seconds ahead of Albrecht. He's been pulling the gap even further. Gerber has proved his dominance once again, looking ready to take another championship. So back to the lead for the GTOs. Hagner ahead of Trangerade. That looked like Dove lifted very early there in the braking zone. I think Trangerade is short on fuel. He was in there for 20 seconds versus the likes of Hagner, who was 23. Arnotzi was in there for 25. That is a very short stop. I think Hagner knows it. He's trying to break the draft. He's not going to let him gain on him. They're going to get the white flag this time by.
Yeah, and right behind him, Arnotzi, Neidhart, and McCullough really closing in on train grade already, so not looking good for train grade.
I think he cut it a little too tight. Meanwhile, did Derlicka spun it once more out of the bus stop. And that's might actually save him a lap if he wants it, because just behind him, there you see our leader in the prototypes. I didn't think he was going to get this one, but Fabian Gerber proving why he's taken so many championships here in the Kamel Series. Victory today at Daytona goes to Fabian Gerber.
Ove train grade has come into the pits as well. He decides he can't make it to the finish. He'd rather come in for a splash. So Joni Hagner with a big lead over Arnotzi. For third place, though, Neidhart aggressively holding off McCullough.
What a twist in the tail. And I kind of wonder about Joni Hagner as well. He was a little short on the stop. And the fact that Milan Arnotzi is gaining a lot actually here.
Hagner might be saving just a little bit of fuel at the end. Hopefully he's got enough to make it.
He stayed out, so he's committed at this point. The number one car, 1.2 seconds ahead. It is now 1.1 second ahead. I think Arnotzi is gaining. He's gaining quick, coming up to the bus stop. Joni Hagner trying to drift the car through, coasting it to make sure he can get to the end. It is now 0.8 of a second. Milan Arnotzi is coming. All he has to do is get to the line. They're on the oval portion. Who's got enough fuel? Who's got enough pace? Milan Arnotzi down to 0.7 of a second. They come off the oval, 0.5 of a second. Hagner is far enough ahead. I think he's got it. Joni Hagner going to take the win, but it is oh so close at the line. Milan Arnotzi takes second, and third place is going to go to Tanner McCullough.
Photo finish there for that by about a quarter of a car length. McCullough got that third place position.
And Dennis almost got him back. He knew he was drafting by. He tried to side draft him. Look at him get right up next to him. See if he can squeak through, but it's not enough.
Is that 26 thousandths of a second there?
That is indeed awful close. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. I loved this race. This was a lot of fun to watch. Completely unpredictable and a lot of fun, at least from here in the booth. We'll see what the drivers think as we come back in a bit with the official results as well as the driver interviews on screen. You can see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
I can still remember what it was like the first time I stepped into a race car. The sound of the engine, the anticipation, but I never could have imagined where this journey would take me. My father once told me that racing is just like life. You have to stay on your toes, because you never know what's around the next corner. My name is Bill Watson, and this is my story.
Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Don't say we don't do our homework for you because, well, we saw that Fabian Gerber won, but we didn't see exactly how he got back into the lead. We've got the replay of the incident with Justin Albrecht. As far as we can tell, it looks like he was maybe put off a little bit by John Keefe, who was ahead of him into the International Horseshoe here, Nick, but it's still a strange incident.
Yeah, that was actually Sven Schnoes right in front of him.
Oh,
But it
you're
looks
right.
like I think he was put off just a little bit and maybe wanted to go to the outside, thinking Schnoes was going to stay to the inside, and it looks like he just dipped a wheel into the grass. Looks like that was just enough to hook him around.
Yeah, the Ohio driver's got to be kicking himself because there he sees the leader scream on by, and he probably knew that lost him the victory today. Well, let's give you the results as they wound up because Fabian Gerber, as we mentioned, is your victor. And Justin Albrecht did come home in second, but he was 5 seconds behind. Dustin Heroder, pretty happy, I would assume, with his third place. Jeffrey Garzotto winds up in P4. That's after another incident, many of them today for poor Jesper Derlicka. Spins galore, although he does make a gain from 7th on the grid to P5. John Atkinson Jr. was the first car a lap down. He gets 6th place. And then Johnny Bell, some early damage may have hurt his pace. He comes home in 7th. Nick?
Over in the Audis, it's Joni Hagner picking up his 5th win of the season. Milan Arnozzi, he was looking for a 2nd win of the season. Man, he put on a great show today, made a lot of aggressive passes, a lot of speed out of that 12 car, but it's only going to get him 2nd place. Tanner McCullough by 26 one-thousandths of a second. Looks like he's going to come home with a podium finish over Dennis Neidhart. Nick Mukanos going to wind up in 5th, and Ove Trengrade, after just 1 lap shy on fuel, going to come home right behind him in 6th. Sergey Serbin behind them, Alexander Veldeman, Henry Pitkinen, Michael Haynes. You see Phil Lake, the Nissan down there, Riley Downey, Willy Rolla, Reed Miller, and Tobias Miller down further back behind Finazzi, Keefe, and other Nissans as well.
Yeah, Workup, Schnoes have all had problems in this race. Miller and Meyer round out the fields. Let's go to our interviews because we have our winner in the prototypes ready to talk to us, Fabian. Now, we were pretty shocked when we saw Justin Albrecht in the lead after the pit stops. What about you?
I was more shocked, I guess, but I somehow expected it because by mid-race I actually thought I lost the race because Phil was saving fuel behind me, so he would have a shorter pit stop. I tried to save fuel as well, but you just can't save as much as the guy behind you. And when Justin was in front of me, I thought, okay, I have to battle for 2nd. That's going to be great, but the win is gone. And then we actually came out at the same time, Phil and I. So there was still a chance to win.
Unexpected victory today. Things really seem to have swung your way this season in a few places because, like you said, Phil was challenging you and he looked pretty strong. I mean, at this point, do you feel incredibly confident about the championship being in your hands? We've got 2 rounds left to go and you've got a substantial lead.
Yeah, I think it surely should be possible. Unfortunately, I can't be in Zandvoort. I'm on vacation then, but Brands Hatch shall be back, and I'm not sure about the point system with drop weeks, etc. And I have another didn't start, so I'm not really sure. But I think it really should go well this season.
And you talked about fuel saving at this track. When Albrecht initially got by you early in the race, did you want to kind of hang behind him? Did you want to try and use that strategy to try and save?
No, because we were 3 people. I thought it would only make sense when we're 2, and I'm behind. So I wanted to lead, but I guess it's so difficult to think clearly in the car like this and drive fast at the same time. So I probably was totally wrong about my strategy.
Well, wrong or not, it all worked out in your favor. Congratulations on another victory.
Thank you very much.
Fabian Gerber, winner today, and multi-time champion looking at potential another crown on his head. Next up is Joni Hagner. Nick has caught up with our winner in the GTOs.
I have indeed. It's win number 5 out of round number 10, so not a bad record on the season at all there, Joni. It was a hectic race and an even more exciting finish. What were your thoughts there in the last couple of laps?
Well, I just barely get outside my draft range, and then there was a one lap pet car. It's not his fault or anything, but he was a bit in the way in the slow part of the track and give the over a full draft on the oval, and he got me. So I needed to play like some slowdown games, not to lead in the final lap. But I think Ove know what I tried to do, and yeah, I think he ran out of fuel. But yeah.
Yeah, you had Ove right behind you. Did you think he had enough fuel to get to the end? And if so, what was your plan? Did you want to try to let him go and maybe set up yourself for a last lap pass around him, or were you just going to go defensive all the way around?
Well, I tried to let him pass second to last lap, but I don't know. I would like park at the car or something in some corner.
Yeah, and then you had after that didn't quite work out because Ove ran out of fuel. Then you had Milan Arnozzi show up out of nowhere. What did you think you were going to be able to hold him off there? Well, you had about a 0.7 of a second lead on the last lap. He was closing pretty quickly, it looked like.
Yeah, I watched the relative cap, and I was okay with that cap.
Yeah, and I got to ask too about the first stint of this race before the pit stop. It was crazy. It was 7 Audis all together in a pack race. It looked like a NASCAR race here on the oval a couple times. What was going through your mind through there trying to keep it safe?
Just try to save much fuel as possible and be like on the first part of the pack, but not leading. So yeah, because I know that if there is like big, small or big crash and or something happening with Nissan, the gap would be really hard to drive back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, no major accidents came out of that big racing, and thankfully for you, you were able to get the win today. So congratulations on that. Just a couple weeks left. Hopefully, we get to talk to you again.
Yeah, I hope so too.
That was our winner in the GTOs, the Audis, Joni Hagner, who gets another victory this season. But it's going to take us to a close here on the Global Sim Racing channel for the moment. We want to thank the Kamel GT series for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also a big thank you to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. If you haven't already, maybe hop on over to catch the coverage of the Indy 500 and make sure and catch us more tomorrow, where we'll be on IESN. To do that, all you got to do is subscribe. Make sure and click the big red button that says subscribe on their YouTube page, and you'll catch more racing both tomorrow and many days to come here on IESN. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Now, next race, as was mentioned, we're going to Zandvoort. That's going to be a lot harder to pass at that track. That'll be Saturday, May 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen. So check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.